Good evening, counselors, and welcome to Scary Stories by the Campfire. We are your hosts tonight, Jeremy.
Jason.
And what a doozy of a movie that we got to talk about today. Well, first off, if you are joining us on Twitch, I'd just like to take a shout out to Jason's shirt. He's joining me in the Nightmare on Elm Street swag. Uh,
There we go.
Gotta
People,
represent that Freddy Krueger. Um, but it's it was a doozy of a movie, I will say. Um and that's really all I can say. It was just insanely crazily funny.
yeah, the movie that we're referencing is the what is it? The
Sixth.
sixth movie of the series, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, and I knew this was going to be the lowest of the lows. This one, uh, unlike the last couple movies we watched, Dream Master and Dream Child, where I knew that the series was going to start going downhill. I actually kind of liked the ideas that were presented in those two films. I don't think they were executed very well, but I do like the fact that there was um, still some sort of continuity. There's still a continuation. You can watch Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child back to back, and it will tell this overall arcing story. This movie had none of that. It pretty much took everything that this was almost a Freddy's Revenge movie, but poorer. This is this was a hard one to get through, and I think it was because when we first got the movie started, it was just like,
Oh, you mean this?
okay,
This right here? This this is what we got. We got Freddy riding a broomstick as the Wicked
this
Witch of the West, and you instantly knew what kind of movie you were in for.
this movie this movie took the fear out of Freddy and just gave him pure comedy. That was it. There was nothing in this movie that was disturbing. There was nothing in this movie that was scary, frightening, anything that you would believe a nightmare. We are on the opposite pole of what the first movie was. You have the first movie, which is dark, gritty, scary, you know, uh, twisted and everything involved. This is the polar opposite. This is nothing but jokes and gags and poor CGI. I don't know how the movies got worse CGI as they went along.
I don't
I don't know
either.
how that works. Maybe because they spent more time with practical effects in the first couple movies instead of the CGI, and then they were putting more and more CGI into the later movies. But this movie was bad.
And
It was bad.
a friend of mine, Caitlin, she actually brought up a good point, and I agree with her. The one thing that stood out to me, I noticed it right away. Freddy's makeup was atrocious in this movie. There wasn't much to it at all. It's like they wanted to get it done as fast as possible with as little detail as possible just to get it slapped on there quickly to get it rolling.
Yeah, I think during our movie time, I kept referencing him as Grandpa Freddy because he
You
just
did.
looked like he looked like Grandpa. He looked like a Grandpa Freddy. He just pretty much sat around and he had these kind of looks and he just looked like he was unamused with people. It was actually kind of funny. Like I said, polar opposite from the first movie because the first movie was very kind of fleshy, very kind of wet and slimy looking. He had this look about him. This was totally opposite. And I he just yeah, it just didn't seem like they cared too much about this one.
So, and we've already talked about how in the first movie it kind of gave birth to a big actor's acting career with Johnny Depp, right?
Yes.
Well, this one actually was the film debut for Breckin Meyer, and I don't
Was
think
it
it was his first feature film, and I don't think I would want it on my resume.
what was it his first one?
Yeah.
I thought it was one. I
Mm-mm.
thought he had done something else before this. I
Nope.
wouldn't go. I wouldn't go so far. I think that's the great thing about these actors in their movies. A lot of them do kind of, I guess, when they're starting up, they may look at it and go, "Oh man, look at this! It's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. These movies are big. I'm gonna be in it." And I mean, it's not. I mean, Breckin Meyer is. Um, I know he's done. I think. I think the first time I actually got, I saw him in a movie was actually Rat Race. Um, and
Yep.
then afterwards it was like Garfield and Road Trip or whatever. But I completely forgot that he was in this movie, and I w- I wouldn't take it away from like my resume. If I was in this movie, I'd be like, yeah, it's not a good movie, but at least I was in it.
Okay, yeah, I can
You
deal with
know,
that.
I
So,
mean, yeah.
you want to hear something crazy though? Do you know what the original who wrote the original screenplay for this movie was? Peter
Who wrote the
Jackson.
Peter? He wrote the original screenplay for this.
Yep, and in the original screenplay it was supposed to be a continuation from the Dream trilogy, and it's it had Freddy was supposed to be aging and growing weaker because no one was afraid of him anymore. And the teens of Springwood would have drug fueled slumber parties for kicks and enter the dream world to beat him up.
Why wasn't that made? That sounds just. Oh God,
There
that
was
sounds
also
crazy.
supposed to be what they called the Dream Police, with the return of Kincaid and the Dream Warriors as different, like, Dream Police.
Did you just say Dream Police, Jeremy?
I did.
Actually, now that I think about that I think that's a song.
that
Let me take a look here real quick. I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
was.
Yes, Dream Police is a 1970s single by Cheap Trick. That's amazing. I was like, Dream Police.
So,
Um,
yeah, so we had all these things happen, and I won't take away. There was obviously a lot of bad, and we'll get to that. But there were a few minor moments of good in this movie. There was one particular which was the death of Carlos. With Carlos being deaf, I loved the idea that when his hearing aid would come out, all the silent, everything in the movie was quiet. So you were kind of hearing it from his perspective, like feeling it in the way that the character would. Now he minded they kind of screwed it up with Freddy like behind him taunting him because he can't hear. But the overall kill was, in my opinion, one of the high points of the movie.
yeah, that's how I want to go into these movies is that, you know, like some people who come into a movie and they watch a bad movie and they go, wow, it's a bad movie and I don't ever want to watch that again. And then you may ask them, hey, what are some good points to the movie? And they go, there's no good points to the movie. It's a terrible movie. I always want to try to find, because whether it's just a studio putting a movie out and they're trying to rush everything, there has to the movie's put together by people who I hope actually care for what they're getting, you know. Now, I know some of them have like these great ideas and they can never properly execute them because the studio is like, "No, we don't want that. No, we don't want that. Hurry up, get it out. We want it made cheap. We want it made fast so we can make that, that dollar."
We talked about that in Dream Child. It was written
Yeah.
in like 24 hours.
So, in my opinion, I would I don't want to like go in and just bash a movie because it's terrible. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people, who worked on the film may turn around and go, "Yeah, it was a bad movie." But I always want to try to find the best parts of, a movie, and Carlos's death, at least to me, was like the highlight. Carlo, the characters were actually kind of likable. I mean, they're not like the worst characters that we've had, but I mean, the characters were relatively likable, but just the effects that were done in the Carlos scene was by far um probably the highlight. And it's not hard to call it the top part, considering that the following death, which was Breckin Myers' Spencer, who followed right after that with the most ridiculous death in the entire series, in my opinion. That was just
She
that
could
was
have saved
almost
him. She could have saved him. I'm just
she
saying.
could have yeah we she could have saved him, and because the hole was probably no bigger than what, a dresser. It's very easy. She could have just stepped over that, but yeah, but I mean the characters. Um, here's the thing: the John Doe character. They never explained anything about him. They never explained where he came from. I think. Um, I think even Raven, who was in our movie time audience, I think.
He's
I think
played
she
by
even.
Sean Greenblatt.
Yeah, but I think she even asked if he was Jacob from Dream Child, like grown up, but they
There
never
were
explained.
there was rumors going around that it would be, and I think that was originally what they wanted it to be. The problem was, um, at least for me, that I have to say it's not Jacob, is because this movie takes place 10 years after Dream Child, and that means Jacob would have been 10 to 11 in this movie.
Yeah,
So now he might these movies aren't that great with continuity, but still, I think they kind of pushed that out the door. It was originally supposed to be that. It was supposed to be another continuation. It was supposed to be Jacob. Alice was supposed to be killed off, um, either on screen or off screen, but they just couldn't do it. So this is kind of like what they came to. But, going off of, what you're saying about that being the high point, let's look at some of those really low points. Like Game Freddy here, stomping a mud hole and a poor Spencer in his video game.
yeah. I don't want to talk about this no more.
Because
No,
not only did
yeah.
you get this picture, you get this little gaming grandpa Freddy that you were talking about, as well as this grandpa Freddy that you were talking about.
And some of the jokes he makes is kind of funny, and uh,
Oh, I was cracking up.
but I mean, like when you're looking at like this 8-bitish kind of like almost Microsoft Paint looking video game style with like real life Spencer in there. And I th- I don't know if he says the line after he kills Spencer or whatever, but he leans towards the camera and he's like, "Wow, great graphics."
Oh, it was right
And I'm
after
like,
it.
it was right after it. I'm like, "Oh my God, please don't ever say that again."
No, it was right
You
before
know?
because right after he said, looks like I just beat my high score.
Yeah, because I think that was, yeah, right when Spencer fell in that little hole at the
Yeah.
bottom of the stairs. Um,
I just
oh
love I just love his whole nonchalant in this whole like scene cuz then this is where um the girl and his daughter like find him in the dream world and he's just like in there with his feet propped up playing this game and like they run over and hit him. Just punch him in the face. and like yanked the controller out of his hand, and he's like, that's when he like shut the door and he's like, "You forgot about the power glove."
Yeah, I knew there was a Power Glove reference in there, and it wasn't even an actual Power Glove. It was just some buttons on his like razor hand. I think it would have been even better if they were able to implement the um the actual Power Glove, like actually have a Power Glove and then have like the claws coming out of it, like.
Oh, that'd be
But
cool.
it was just like a normal kind of glove with the buttons on it. Actually, you could see it in that picture right there. Um,
Yeah.
if you guys are actually watching the video version of this. Um, but the overall story doesn't even make sense to me.
Nope, it
I
does
mean,
not.
it literally starts off with the John Doe character being tormented by Freddy in the Wizard of Oz parody with the witch looking thing. And the first 5 minutes felt very like Looney Tunes. Like I think he hit him with a bus and he's driving down the road and
Oh,
John is like stuck to the front of the bus and he's like, oh, and then he hits the brakes and launches him through and it makes like the person size shape.
oh, I
Um,
compared the whole Spencer scene in the hallway to a Scooby Doo episode where
yeah,
he's just
that's
going in door and coming out the other side, and they had all of the old cartoon sound effects going.
all them sound effects ruined the entire thing. You couldn't take anything in this movie seriously. You couldn't. There was no way that people were sitting in the audience going, "Oh my God, this is frightening." It's not. It is by far one of the most um, non-serious movies you could take. Like this is a parody of what the other movies were.
And it's almost
And what
like,
really gets me is the begin.
say what? The beginning?
No, I was just saying like the beginning is like maybe I was going into this thinking it was kind of like a continuation of the other movies because, like, you start the movie, Freddy's already alive. They never explain how he even comes back. He's just there. And I guess his plan is to get John Doe to bring, I guess, kids back to Springwood, which apparently has no kids. They have this pathetic, like, little fair.
Oh, speaking of the
And
fair,
it, the yeah, this fair with like three adults there just wandering around because there's and all the this is almost post-apocalyptic Springwood.
so it was funny that you said it was like comparatively to the old ones. It's almost as if they knew the franchise was gonna die, so they made a parody killing Freddy. Like the movie's called Freddy's Dead, and this is killing the series because the series was gonna die anyway. Almost like they knew it, so they were just like, you know what? Let's just make it as bonkers as we can do it. But I mean, we have this beautiful cameo of Roseanne, and I think it's right before this scene here is where she grabs onto Carlos's face and is like rubbing her face on his.
Hmm. That is just a weird cameo to come in.
But
Rose and
so there's one more cameo. Okay, so there were a lot of cameos in this movie. You
yeah,
had
there's quite a few of them
you
in
had
there.
Roseanne, you had Johnny Depp coming back going, "This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs." And then Freddy whops him in the face with a frying pan.
Yeah, that was when Spencer was stoned out on the couch. Yeah, that was a
But
fun little.
I want you to tell me who this cameo is. I want to see if you can guess it.
Yeah, Jim, that's Alice Cooper.
You know why he agreed to be in this movie?
Why did he agree to be in this movie, Jeremy? Please tell me. I mean, I knew he was already in the movie because I knew that he was Freddy's dad.
Yes. So he was uncredited, but the only reason
Hmm.
he said yes was because A, he was a fan of the series, but
Hmm.
two, this was the first movie that he has been asked to be in, which in the documentary of the makings of the movies, I can't remember what that documentary that came out is called. Um, he said it's the first movie that asked him not to be in the Alice Cooper makeup and persona.
Actually, that's pretty nice. You know, it must be really hard when all they want is like the actual like Alice Cooper persona and not, just him as a
Ne-
person.
Never Sleep Again. That's the name of the documentary. Yeah, he stated that he gets asked to be in films all the time, but they always want him in makeup and as his onstage persona. And this was the first time that they didn't want that, and
I
he agreed to it.
now and this is he has to be like the adoptive dad. He's got to be an adoptive dad. He can't be his like actual dad. Because
Well,
I mean, they even reference earlier in the movie where you know little kid Freddy is killing a hamster or something like that. They're taunting him. They're like the son of 100 maniacs or something like that. And
I highly doubt
but
they let Alice Cooper out of the nut job to be his dad.
no, but I think I know why Freddy killed him though. I think I know why.
Because he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
No, it's because he found out that Alice Cooper actually did the song for one of the Friday the 13th movies and decided that wasn't fair enough.
Part 6 of Friday the 13th.
Part part 6 of Friday the 13th. What? Hey, it's the same
So
same
he's
one.
writing music
So
for Friday the 13th Part 6, and he's starring in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6. All he missed was Halloween. and,
part 6, yeah.
and he would have had the trifecta. Ooh, I
The
don't know if
he
I
got
would have
the
wanted
horror.
been in
Was that the one?
H2O.
No, not necessarily them. One, two, three. No, there
No, it would have
was
been.
Halloween 6 was the one with Paul Rudd. It was
Yeah,
like
never
the
mind.
curse of
That I
Paul
wouldn't want to be
Rudd.
in that one. I think I would have said no to that too.
Yeah. Well, Paul Rudd did it, and he was Tommy Doyle in that one, and then they had the new Tommy Doyle in the new movie, and that was yeah, I didn't really watch that one, so
So
but I'll
Ravenfire
have to.
said he sent John Doe to get his daughter because he wanted his daughter back so he can enter her so he can shift through her to another place where he was stuck in Springwood and needed fresh meat. The demons gave him powers to be able to do this essentially.
Them some weak demons. They can't even allow you to,
Leave
you
your
know,
area.
yeah, you're stuck in. How do dreams work? Do dreams stop at like the town line, the county line, or whatever?
It's 2 miles. They stopped at 2 miles before Springwood. That was the shortest bus ride ever.
Well, I guess it depends on where that other place was, but um, I'm I'm gonna say that one of the this movie did have like almost kind of like a little bit of a shocking moment because you're looking at all these characters and um the the death of John Doe was kind of a surprise. I completely forgot that happened in the movie.
I did too,
Um,
completely.
yeah, I mean, yeah, because they focus on him so much. He's like star. He's the one who's kind of pushing the story, and then Carlos Spencer and what's her face. I say that, but I can't remember the female of the young trio. Um, they show up, and you're kind of like, oh, those are going to
Tracy.
be the ones, Tracy, and they're going to be the ones who are the ones who get killed off. And now they get they get Carlos Spencer, and then they followed up with the John Doe, and it's like, wow, that's. But even his death was silly. He was
Oh, it
like,
was.
I think the only death that wasn't entirely silly was Carlos's because it was actually kind of Freddy using a weakness against him. This guy was like he's sitting on, he fell out of the bed or whatever a couple times, fell out a window, whatever, and he ends up back in the bed. And he's like, I'm not getting out of this. There's nothing that's gonna make me get out of this bed. And then the bed catches fire, and it's almost just like deadpan humor. He just like looks over, he's like, hmm, and then he gets out of the bed because the whole house is on fire
And then he
now.
jumps
And
out the window and he has the parachute and like Freddy's like in the parachute like spinning around above him.
yeah, and then he comes down and he cuts the lines because he's like he says something about being his son or whatever, and Freddy's like, "No, you're not my son. It's I had a daughter or whatever." And then he cuts the lines and he starts falling, and then it shows Freddy on the ground pushing this big bed of nails on this flat cart, and he's pushing it, and then he stops and he's like tired. He's like, "Whew, oh," and then and I'm like, "Are you this?" We went, Jeremy, we went from using your tendons and the muscles and being carted around like a marionette down a hallway in some sort of creepy fashion to Looney Tunes. This is what this movie became. Looney Tunes.
But and it was what was even funnier in my opinion, not just that, but it was also the when they got him out of like when the doc found him in his dream and just like beat him with a baseball bat.
That was another thing, Jeremy. This Freddy was non-threatening. He literally showed up in your dreams. He showed up in your dreams. He would say some witty thing that he thought was really funny, or he'd threaten you somehow, and then you beat the snot out of him. That's how that worked. Every one of them did that. He threatened Tracy, she beat him up. He threatened the dog, he beat him up. And it was like, are you doing this on purpose? Are you literally taking shots because you're just bored at this point?
Even Robert England was like, I'm done with this guy. Let's just, I can't do it.
And all the other movies, they tried to find creative ways to kill Freddy off. I think the first movie he was set on fire again, and then he ended up whatever. But I don't think he actually quote unquote died in that movie because they had that whole weird dream sequence at the end. Um, and she stabbed it. How did he die in the second one again? She stabbed him. Is that what it
No, he
was?
kind of like disintegrated with
Oh,
love.
with the power of love. Yes.
He just kind of fell apart. And the
Dream War, Dream Warriors had the death of
holy water.
Holy Water,
Dream
and
Master
then
was the
was
mirror.
the Mirror, and then Dream Child was,
The fetus like launching out and
yeah, they turned him back into baby Freddy, and then the spirit of his mom like just absorbed him or something. This one, pipe bomb, just
with
wedged.
the longest fuse ever. It was
Yeah,
already halfway burnt when she tossed it to him, and she stuck it and then kissed him and then walked away.
with the lamest line in my opinion, the lamest line in the entire movie, which was Happy Father's Day. Was it even close to Father's Day? It looked like it was like in fall or autumn. And she's just like, Happy Father's Day. Not even like, I was talking with a guy at work, and it could have been like, uh, she could have said something like, Love you, Dad, or something like that. But no, it was just, this movie, this movie, it upsets me. Well, it doesn't really upset me. It's one of those movies that I probably wouldn't watch like for a little while. But if you get a couple good friends and a couple of drinks with you, and you just sit down and just kind of laugh at it, it's a fun little laugh movie is what it is. It's if you're going into like a serious nightmare movie, this no, this is not for you. It's not going to happen.
And I have to give credit to Robert Englund. He did try his best.
I mean, I think most of them did. I think a lot of them that, and that's the thing about movies. Some people don't have a problem bashing movies. I don't. If it's a bad movie, I'm gonna say it's a bad movie. It's a movie I didn't like, but I can respect the people who put their time and their effort to try to make this, you know, a movie. And I'm not gonna say that this is by far like the worst Freddy. I mean, he's not. I think most people nowadays, when they think of pop culture Freddy, this is the one they're talking about a
Uh,
lot of times. I
unfortunately.
I still think Dream Warriors Freddy is kind of the perfect balance because he does say some like one-liners that are really kind of creepy and twisted, and that's what makes it so good. And then you got this one, and it's just jokes all the time, and it's but there's like no continuity. That and that's what makes this movie hurt the most is that there's no sort of continuation. There's no sort of continuity. It just, like I said, they never explain how Freddy comes back. He's just there. They kind of about half through the movie start explaining about the little dream demons who actually give him powers.
That was some of the
Those like little
worst CGI I'd ever seen.
and that last what maybe
It
30 minutes.
was half hour because when this movie came out in theaters, they handed you a pair of 3D glasses that had like the sweater look on the side and it had an advertisement on the other. And they said when she puts them on in the movie, you put yours on. When she puts her glasses on, you put yours on. And yeah, watching that last 30 minutes of
Yeah, she almost went stupid in that movie right there at the end. Because I think the guy was like, "Here's some glasses." She's like, "What are they?" It's like, "Well, in the dream world, they could be whatever you want." And she gets in there and puts them on, and they disappear. And then all of a sudden, she's sticking her fingers in her face, like, "Woo!" Like it's some sort of crazy 3D effect. I'm like, "Lady, you live in a world that is three-dimensional, whatever. It's not nothing new." And you're like, you're sticking your fingers in your face like it's something new. And it's oh god, this movie went stupid so fast. Oh,
all of the 3D stuff was just bad, especially the CGI demons that were all like, "Woo!" all up in trying to like be all up in your face.
and I think all the characters went kind of stupid at the end because when they got her back out, she was like, "Oh my god, I'm still seeing things as I saw them in the dream world." Then they went into the basement to the armory thing, and were pulling out knives and stuff like
Oh,
that. Every
Tracy,
one
she
of
loaded up on them things.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but they all start getting like sharp objects and they start poking them towards the camera. Like this is normal human behavior. Let me see what this knife does. Poke, 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 poke. Yeah, that's what it does.
Heck, I mean, Tracy pulled out a crossbow at one.
Them
It's lit.
kids were loading, like, kids were loading up with stuff all over the place in that town, I suppose.
Oh man.
Oh, this oh god, this movie hurt. Not like a it's almost a disappointment. You go through these movies because like I haven't watched these movies like this before. I've seen bits and pieces of the some of the later ones, and but I've never watched them like one every week. And doing that brings a new perspective. So you're like, okay, so you're seeing the first one, see the second one, blah blah blah. I really thought that um once we hit Dream Warriors, that was the peak. And then it would be just really bad after that. But we watched Dream Master. I was like, okay, no, it's not that bad. It's definitely not as good, in my opinion, as Dream Warriors, but it's not that bad. And then I was like, Dream Child's gonna be the worst. And then we watched that. I'm like, you know, I can respect a lot that came out of Dream Child. It's definitely not better than the last one. It's worse than the last one in my opinion. But there's still a lot of good stuff that's coming out of it. Maybe this one will be the opposite, or will be a little bit better. It'd be
Follow that same trend.
it'd follow the same trend. And then first 10 minutes, I'm like, I'm done. That I can't do this. I can't. No, this is bad. This is bad. Can't even kill a guy right. You have to Looney Tunes him through a fake wall.
Oh, and then Spencer just like bouncing like a pogo
Oh,
stick.
that,
Like the whole Spencer death. And I know we've already talked about it, but I just gotta bring it up. When we were doing movie night Monday, um, it was I couldn't stop laughing that entire sequence. I think I almost fell out of my chair laughing at just how over the top, how crazy, and how just insanely bad that entire sequence was. Because at one point in the video game part, kind of like the picture, Spencer was beating Freddy with a frying pan in the game.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I just thought I couldn't. God, I couldn't. I yeah no.
Yeah, I think that was like the jumping of the shark part because, like I said, first 10 minutes you're watching this kind of. They're already referencing the Wizard of Oz. They have the Looney Tunes bit, and I'm like, I can't do this no more. Then we get introduced to the characters, and then we get Carlos's death, and that whole sequence was amazing. And I'm like, okay, it could redeem itself with at least some really good deaths. And then we're hit with Spencer, and I've lost all hope by this point. I'm like, this is, um, and then they do the whole kind of Looney Tunes thing again with John Doe, with his death and stuff. It's just like, you caught me with Carlos, and then you let me go. You let me down with the other two, and
So
I I yeah, I think by that point there was no real good deaths in the entire movie.
so favorite part of the movie.
Carlos's death scene. That's that's by far my favorite. That nothing else in this movie can compete with that.
Okay, so mine isn't Carlos's death. Carlos's death is the high point. My favorite scene is still Spencer, just because of everything that happened.
Mm.
It's still my favorite. The Scooby Doo sound effects, like all of it encapsulated into one, was just great. That's my favorite part. It was terrible. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely
Oh,
horrible. But it was still my favorite. Can't say
uh,
it wasn't. So, scale of 1 to 10. What you got?
on a scale of 1 to 10, 4.
4?
I'm gonna go with a 4. That's probably higher than I would normally. I would give it, but like I said before, you get some good people with some drinks and just don't take it seriously. Go ahead, laugh at it. You're probably gonna have a good time. I mean, Monday when we watched it, yeah, as much as painful as it was to watch the movie, having people there to laugh with you and just kind of poke fun at it, it made it a whole lot fun. It was a much more fun movie, but yeah, it's definitely a 4.
I give it a 4 too. The one, like I said, high point is Carlos's death. I did not like that his head exploded green though.
Yeah, that was
Kind of
I
weird.
noticed that this movie was very I'm not gonna say bloodless because they did have, some scenes with blood, but they never actually came from people, I don't think. I don't think there was ever actually blood coming from people.
No,
Like
it was just
the
him.
largest amount of blood was the dripping pipe.
No, they did have pooled blood on John Doe
Yeah, yeah, he
pouring
was
out
bleeding.
when he was
He
bleeding
was
out. So there was a little
yeah,
bit there, but you're right. And then the blood, green blood spraying out of Freddy's hands as he's like reminiscing on how they killed him. They burned me.
Uh-huh.
They, I don't even know what he said for part two, but he
Uh,
cuts that one off, and then he's like, then they threw holy water on me, and then I was waiting
yeah.
for him to say, but I think he got too embarrassed to be like, they shined a
uh,
mirror at me.
they killed me with a mirror, and then they turned me into a baby. Yeah, they didn't say those, but the practical effects, Jeremy. Would you think with at least some of the practical effects?
They weren't bad. I think they kind of got away from them with this one, and they started with more because they were doing that whole 3D thing. They relied too much on CGI. The whole CGI with Spencer was terrible. Like him getting sucked into the TV.
Yeah.
The demons. The only practical effects that I really did like was during the 3D image when she walks up to like the stone wall door and the demons are like moving.
Yeah. Um, because I know practical effects are always kind of a big thing with you in these movies. I'm gonna say the practical effects that went on in the Carlos death scene
Oh
was
yes,
really good.
the whole ear hearing aid look. Like I thought that
Yeah,
was
and
great.
when the mom, when his mother or whatever took that big Q-tip thing and stuffed it in one ear and pushed it out the other side, or well, she to be Freddy, I think she reverted to the Freddy form, but yeah, she took that big Q-tip and stuck it in one ear and kind of swizzled it around and stuck it way in there until it popped out the other side. I was like, oh, that is so gross. That was painful to sit through. I don't, you know, eyes, teeth, ears, anything like that just really makes me go ugh. But but then Jeremy, you have the best practical effects ever when video game Freddy is stomping on Spencer and real Spencer has pillow
Oh
chest.
God, yes.
He's got pillow chest. I mean, you can see like the footprints going on, but it's literally bending like it's like stepping on a pillow.
It's almost
That
as if
was
they, when they did that scene, they took a pillow, set it there. Someone was stomping on them or stomping on the pillow, and they just edited it out. Uh, and it just
no stairs. Oh. Raven says she's giving it a 3, Jeremy. She said it was so stupid, it was funny, but it was lame as all get out. The only redeeming quality was the silence when he couldn't hear, and most of that scene was good. Well, she said God, but I'm pretty sure she meant good. But yet, still a letdown. Earpiece were alien looking. It was cool, creepy. The earpiece thing when he attached it on there, and then it just kind of grew like spider legs and jammed him into his head so it couldn't get out. It became a kind of like a piece of him.
I did like that. So I want to try something new. Um,
Yay!
and we can go back through 1 through 5 to kind of talk about it, but I want to do this now with all of our time here, and I want to know if we agree and our opinions agree with the Rotten Tomatoes score given to the movies that we're talking about. Be-
Okay, you're gonna probably have to explain the scoring system, how it works
um,
with Rotten Tomato.
so Rotten Tomatoes has two sets of scoring. Um, they've got the audience score and the tomato meter, which is highly reviewed critics. Um,
Okay.
that's typically how they rate their movies. They have those two. So you have the tomato score and the audience score. So it's always two different ones. Um, so you have, like I said, audience score and the tomato meter. That's what it's called, the tomato meter. All right. So with the first one, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the tomato
Uh,
meter is a 95% out of 100. with the
So
audience score being an 84% out of 100.
the tomato meter is the critics,
Is the
the like
critics.
the big time critics.
95 and
You
an
said
84.
I'd agree.
I do too. I think they're
I
I think those are two phenomenal scores for it, and I think they're really well correct
which is pretty weird because I think back in the day, horror movies got like bad raps. Like
all the time.
big time critics, big time critics hated horror movies because they just thought they were trash. So it's really good to hear that but that might not have been from ratings, maybe ratings from today. People just love it today. So
All right,
yes, I will agree.
number 2, Freddy's Revenge. The tomato meter, a 40%. Audience review, 33.
Oh, I don't agree. I don't agree. And I think the problem with that is because of how different the movie is from like the rest of the series. I think it should be higher,
I do too.
in my opinion. I think it should
It's
be higher.
a different take. I think they were trying something different with that movie. Especially when we go back and like we talked about, the second one it was never even meant to be. Like Freddy Krueger was never supposed to go past one movie. Like we talked about.
Hmm.
So when they tried to do something new with it, I think they did well with it. It had its hiccups, it had its flaws, but so does every other movie. But overall, I don't agree with it.
No,
Uh,
I don't.
Dream Warriors.
Ooh.
Tomato meter 72%. Audience score 68.
Oh no, no, I don't agree. It should be higher. Higher. I think it should be higher. Um, you said it was a what?
A
From
72 on the tomato meter.
72, and the first movie was an 85,
95.
95. Ooh. Yeah, I think Dream Warriors should at least be in the 80s.
I think Dream Warriors should be between an 80 and an 85 on the tomato meter. An
Yeah, because
audience score, I I think it should be higher, but
I
audiences
think,
really did not perceive it that well.
I think, geez, I think Freddy's Revenge should at least been in the 70s, at least.
All right, number 4, the Dream Master. Tomato meter 53%, audience 43%.
53 for the Dream Master.
I think it should be in the
Um,
60s.
yeah, I'd probably about 65.
I
That's
would
where I
say
would like.
anywhere between 60 and 63ish. If, in my opinion, I think that's where it should be. The Dream Child.
Oh,
Tomato meter 28%,
28.
and the audience 31.
Uh, Dream Child's a 28 for the tomato meter. I would say
I think
that
this one is extremely low. I think it should be a 45.
yeah, it should be a little bit. I would say a little bit higher. I
Um,
think 20 is way too low.
because it did have a lot of redeeming qualities to it. Yes, it had its moments, and it kind of continuity kind of was all over the place. But I don't think it should get that low. I think it should be about a 40 to a 43 ish, maybe 45 at the highest.
Yeah, sounds about reasonable because, like I said, I thought the idea behind the story, where Freddy was using the unborn child to do the killings, was interesting. I
Yeah,
just think the execution was poor.
I agree. And
Had
last but certainly not least,
Oh God, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this.
Freddy's Nightmare. The last nightmare,
Uh,
Freddy's dead. Audience score is a 32%. The tomato meter, 23.
what was Dream Child again? From the
28 and
tomato.
31. The tomato meter was a 28.
I'm gonna agree with this one. I agree with this one. This one.
It's the it's the first one besides the first movie that I agree with as well. I think a 23 is spot on. I think it could
Yeah.
go lower.
I don't.
I think the lowest it could go is probably an 18,
I think anywhere between 20 and 25 is fine for this movie.
but a 23 on the tomato meter.
Yeah. I think it's sitting about right where it's at. It was definitely a movie that it kind of didn't need to exist, or at least now that it does exist, it should at least connect to something instead of just being almost like I said before. It's kind of like I guess you can kind of think of it as kind of like a Freddy's Revenge, but because it doesn't really tie to anything. They never reference anything from any of the other movies except for like when he's talking about his couple little deaths. Um, but they don't reference anything. It's just like its own standalone movie. You could put this movie in for someone who's never seen a nightmare movie, and they might just get through it and go, "Wow, that's an interesting movie." And then you go, "Well, watch these," and you start them at the beginning again.
This is so. This is not the movie. If someone asks me to go watch what Nightmare on Elm Street movie to recommend, this is not the one I'm going to recommend.
No, you're always gonna want to start with the first
I will
one. I
be like,
think.
look, if you want to watch a funny one, then yeah, go watch it. But don't let that be your opinion on a Nightmare on Elm Street. Just no.
I'm if I had to recommend a movie, one if you let me ask you, Jimmy, if you had to recommend, you were only allowed to pick one nightmare movie to show someone, what would it be? Which one?
It's close. It's very close. But if I had to pick, it's going to be a Nightmare on Elm Street, the OG.
The original? Yeah, I mean, whew.
It's a close one between that and Dream Warriors, but the original does take the lead on that one.
I would say I would probably have to go Dream Warriors. I'd go Dream Warriors on that just because it's kind of got a little bit of everything that makes Freddy who he is. He's scary, he's intimidating. In that movie, you got to see him kind of be a bit more um, sadistic by,
Exploiting.
hitting them again. Yeah, exploiting their weaknesses and actually using them against each other. He got them arguing and trying to divide and conquer type thing. He was able to snap the one kid. Um, but he was also kind of making those like little onesie jokes. I wouldn't say jokes, more like one-liners that actually were more. Um, they were more likely to land than these Power Glove ones and stuff like that. And I think the first movie is a classic. It is by far one of the best horror movies out there. But when people think of Freddy, I don't think they think of that Freddy because in that movie he almost had no personality. He
True.
was just this kind of creepy guy. So
Well, that is all the time we have for tonight. Don't forget Movie Night Mondays. We will be showing Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, and after next week, we will be starting our new series. We won't tell you what it is yet. You'll find that out next week at the end. We'll reveal what we're doing next. But super excited to be able to say that we are almost officially done with the first series on Scary Stories by the Campfire.
yep, Nightmare is almost done. I think what we got. We talked about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and then at some point we are going to talk about the remake. I'm kind of excited for that one. I always get a bad rap. I'll be talking at work with some guys, and I'll bringing up the remake. I'm not saying that the remake is a movie or anything, 'cause it's just kind of a rehash of the first one. But they always kind of look at me sideways, like, really? I'm like, yeah, that Freddy had. I mean, that Freddy wasn't that bad, really. Like, oh god, no. You want bad? Watch this one.
Well, everyone, as always, stay safe. We will see you next Wednesday, same time, same campfire, and there it is. Rep the Freddy Krueger, because that's
Oh
what it is,
god, which
baby.
Freddy was? This is definitely not. This is definitely not Freddy's Dead. Oh, and one last thing, Jim, before we tie this thing out. That ending montage shot with all the during the credit scene. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
You know, that was just it was almost kind of a letdown. I know I get the idea. It's like this is the last Freddy movie. We're gonna show you all these scene shots and stuff from the older movies, the ones that came before it, kind of like a big celebration. It was sad. I was watching that. Don't show me the better stuff than this movie. Don't do that to me. But, all right, yeah. So join us next week for 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 movie time on Monday, and yeah, we'll catch you all at the same time.
See y'all next week. Y'all stay safe.
Stay safe.